Hi, it's Warren Huart here. Hope you're doing marvellously well. And today we're going to talk about using Melodyne and Addictive Drums to create drum samples. This is how I've been doing it for a few years now, as well as pasting in samples by hand, of course. If you go to producelikeapro.com and sign up on the email list, you can download all of those samples that I use for pasting in by hand. But the thing that's great about using Melodyne is it creates MIDI information and gives you the ability to get all the velocity of each hit. So as opposed to just putting in a sample with the same volume every single time. So that's why I started using it. I think it sounds fantastic and we'll go through it. So please sign up, go to producelikeapro.com, subscribe with the link below, and we'll send you lots of free stuff. Okay, fantastic. So let's get started. I'll just take a small section of the kick and snare. I won't use an enormous amount of it because it will take ages to process for the video. So let's just go and take these first few bars. So we'll cut here and here just for the heck of it. Okay, we're going to export these. We can do them as export regions up here, where you see here, export regions as files, or you can just use the shortcut, which is Shift Command or Shift Apple, as I would always say, K. And we're obviously going to keep them as they are, which is 24-bit 48K. So let's export them. On the desktop, let's just create a new folder. Let's call it files. And put them in there. Export. Great. Okay, we can go down here to our Melodyne editor. Go to File. Open. Let's find work files. Let's grab the snare. Sorry, let's grab the kick. And here comes the kick. Okay, so let's go up here and select the tempo properly. Specify fixed tempo. It's estimating at the moment, so let's make it 168. Hit OK. Go to File, Save As, MIDI file, and then hit Save. Okay, next, let's go to Open again. Go to the snare, Open. Go to Specify Fixed Tempo, 168. OK. And then go File, Save As, Format, MIDI, Save. And now in that work files destination, it's just saved 2 sets of MIDI. Okay, great. That was quick and easy. Okay, now so let's import the MIDI. Option, Command, I for import, MIDI. Open, new region. Okay. Option, Command, import, kick, open, new region. So what we're going to do first is switch to notes so we can see where the transients are. So yeah, we'll pick a transient there, like the first main hit, which corresponds to the transient there. So you can tab to transient in regions. So we'll tab. Cut, tab to the transient, the corresponding transient up here. So we've selected the transient here. Now we go to the grabber tool on the MIDI file, select it and hit Control at the same time. And it will snap to where the transient is. Pull it back over there and we have the files now lined up. The transient of the MIDI files were lining up now to the transients of the original audio file. Okay, let's do the same thing with the kick. So we'll put the kick underneath the MIDI track under the kick track. Same thing, selecting the MIDI track, transient on the first main kick, highlight with the grabber tool with Control and snap. There it goes. Okay, great. Now let's Let's clean up our MIDI. We go to option Y, which is event operations. Select and split notes. Select all notes in pitch criteria. So if we select the velocity and make it between 1 and 60, it will basically get rid of all the hits that are below that velocity. And if you see the way it's highlighted, it's really cool. It's got rid of all of that weird random transient information where it's other drums bleeding into the kick. It's kind of cool. And then hit delete and off they go. It looks like we have a couple of stragglers. One at the very end there. So we can highlight that and delete that. Pretty straightforward. Okay, kick's always easy because, with the exception of, there's not many grace note kick parts, but on the snare sometimes you get grace notes, so you have to be a little careful. So let's go to the snare MIDI track. So if we go to velocity and click on this and read it. So we're clicking on the velocity here and we can see that's 105. So basically we could just say anything. I think that's our quietest hit by the looks of it. So we could say anything below, even 100 could go. Have a quick check and then delete, and there we go. Okay, so now we're going to make instrument tracks for our MIDI files. Just Shift Command N, and then select Stereo Instrument Track, and create. So 2 new tracks, kick and snare instrument track. Addictive Drums. Let's drag our MIDI file down. Go back to regions so we can grab it. Grab a tool, grab it down. Okay, so we're going to move the note to select it for the kick. We're going to hit Apple A to select everything. We go to Event Operations, Transpose. Okay, so I've found the kick note, which is C1, and then I'm going to get transpose all notes to C1. I'll reselect, highlight them all, and there it goes. Goes to C1. Okay, so let's try the same thing with the snare. Let us locate the snare. There's the snare, and that is at D1. Apple A, select everything, change that to D1, apply, and great. So now we have the kick and the snare. Now let's print those audios. I'm printing them. We're going to print them separately. We're not going to print them as a stereo file because we need to be able to mix them independently. So we'll create 2 audio tracks. And we'll record them back on, record them out of the Addictive Drums into separate audio tracks. So we just select a bus output from our Addictive tracks and a bus input to our audio tracks. Okay, so we're coming out 21, bus output 21 and 22 out of our kick track, bus output 23 and 24 of our snare track, and then making the audio tracks correspond with that. I'm using output 25 and 26 on the console. Obviously, if you're just using a stereo return, 1 and 2 would be your output, so you can hear them. I'm going to print them obviously both at the same time because they're going to individual buses. And here we go. Let's go into record. Okay, great. So now we've printed the addictive kick and addictive snare. Take that record. Let's check the kick and the snare live tracks together and see how they're syncing. First thing I would do here is just check, well, here's our first issue. That we should, obviously we're just doing this little chunk here. Here's our first issue. So we bring our addictive snare down underneath our snare top. A couple of things. And this happens from time to time when it doesn't read the transients on, say, something like this. You're going to have to build it really quickly. Well, the first issue here is that the phase, the polarity is exactly opposite. So go up to Audio Suite, go to invert under other, and you can just invert the whole thing. Process, invert. Okay, now our phase is pretty darn good. You see there? So that makes our life a little easier here. Okay, next thing, if we listen to this front, it's like, it's weird. You see, if we take the snare out here, you'll hear a little, like a little ba-ra-ba-da. You know, when you're using samples, you'll never get exactly the right thing. But look, let's just take this hit here and kind of build something quickly. I just literally took a piece of it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of cheat and create something. See, look, that's basically it here. You see all the polarity here? See, it's like basically lining up. It's going to sound a little machine gun-like initially, but we're going to get creative on it. So lay in the next one. Yeah, that's... I'm just trying to find where it looks pretty good. It's always a compromise with some of the stuff. That looks good around there. So now what I'm going to do, get creative and invert that. Okay, it's pretty close enough for jazz. Okay, now that you're going to probably think is going to be a little machine gun-like. Let's have a listen. Not bad, not bad. So what I would do is I would come in here personally. You can do it with clip gain, or you can just do it with gain. I like to do things with gain because they're permanent. Maybe take that first one down slightly. That's not much. Just take it down to, I don't know, 70% of its current volume. Take this one down to, I don't know, 81% of its current volume, and then leave the last one. So volume-wise, I mean, it's a little machine gun-ish. Sometimes in these instances where I get really, really fast snare drum rolls, I'll push the original up above it. And bearing in mind there's nothing going on here. You could also do that on the MIDI. If you discover this stuff earlier on, you can sit there with the MIDI and you could, you know, copy and paste the MIDI information and turn the velocity up and down. It's really up to you. I mean, quite frankly, when I'm doing really complicated drum parts, I might do it all in MIDI and then miss things and then fix it in audio. I mean, you know, there's no geniuses here. I think that it's really, as long as you're paying close attention to it, you're going to be fine. Okay, so let's do the same thing. We're going to pull down the kick here, put it underneath the kick sample, and basically the same issue. The phase, let's go and look at a few different ones. Yeah, so we're going to come in here, we're going to go to the audio suite, go to invert. And you could put a plugin on here, you could put the trim plugin and hit and invert it that way. But here we go. Now, it's ever so slightly late as far as I'm concerned. So I'm actually going to see slightly, I'm just going to tug it along slightly here. There you go. To me, I think that's going to give us better phase. Okay, so let's listen to that little chunk we've done. Okay, so I'm just going to come out of suspended groups for a second. I'm going to turn on I'm going to create a group of my Addictive kick and snare here. Let's just call it add. Okay, so you might not want to get rid of these instrument and MIDI tracks. So let's just highlight them like this. What I'm doing is I'm holding down Command as I go through. Like that, and then I'm going to go and go hit Control and hide and make inactive. So they'll be there if we need them. You know, if you want to adjust the MIDI later, or you've created MIDI and you want to use a different sound. Like you've just created MIDI for a snare, and let's just say in the chorus you want to add something on the snare, like the tambourine hits. Your MIDI's already there. So you can open up your MIDI again, you could put a tambourine on it. The more you do this, the easier and quicker it will be. And, you know, it's remarkable how fast creating MIDI is with Melodyne. Okay, so now I've got these two soloed. That's just our Addictive. Jump. Drums without the samples. Very natural sounding snare. Quite a soft kick. The kick in my room is, I just mic the front head, so it's got a lot of to it. What the Addictive does is give me the attack. With samples, without. Without and with. Now, the drummer's pretty even on this track. One thing we didn't talk about, which I think is important to know, is you see he's quite even. See the MIDI information there's definitely some dynamics there, but they're very natural looking. Now, if you get a very, very dynamic drummer, first of all, you'll get more MIDI information you're going to have to go through and delete and figure out. But you can also, when you're looking at the MIDI, you can also literally highlight all the MIDI and push it towards the top. And as you push the velocity of the MIDI information towards the top, the really loud ones will get closer to the softer ones. Now, why would you ask, why do you want to do that? Well, that evens out the dynamics. You know, and you can push everything to the top and get everything at the same volume. You know, not that you'd want to do that. But there's quick and easy ways to increase the dynamics. To decrease the dynamics. To increase the dynamics, you can also do manually as well. Cool. Great. So thanks for watching. That's one of the ways that we put drum samples in while, you know, mixing and recording. For me, I've got a small drum room, which I'm sure if you have access to recording drums, your drum room's probably small. And Addictive with Melodyne allows me to really kind of make my small drum room sound pretty big and pretty powerful. You know, I'm using a very small amount of drum mics. I've only got one kick mic, two snare top and snare bottom, one hi-hat, overheads, and toms. There's no room mics here on 90% of what I record. So if I want to increase the ambience, you know, I could go to an Addictive Drum kit and I could actually print the room mic sounds for a kick and snares as well. You can do all kinds of crazy things. So it's a really, really cool trick. Melodyne, you know, getting those MIDI from the transients. You saw it takes seconds to do. So it's really wonderful. So please, as ever, leave some comments. Any questions? Please, if you do this as well and you have any other tips of how you do it, I'd love to know. That'd be really awesome. I'm sure we could share information. And subscribe and go to producelikeapro.com and sign up for the email list, and you'll get loads of fun, free stuff. We're actually just putting up a new video of Sunset Sound, a little tour of Studio 2 that should be up in the next few days. Okay, so thank you ever so much. Have a marvelous time recording.